How's it going, everybody? How y'all doing out there? Well, it's been smoky, smoky, smoky here in Reading. The fires that are burning west of me have not been 1% contained. They're 100% uncontained. Burning west north, I believe, but it's been really, the smoke's been thick today. It's getting dark right now, and it's barely 6 o'clock. And then, folks, the fires in Napa are burning out of control. They're not contained either. 3 people have passed away so far here and out on Zogmine Road. I go somewhere. I don't know the details because they haven't printed them yet. But anyway, fire season is far from over and no rain in sight. So here we are. I don't know what week we're in. We've been in school now for over a month, and we're doing music this week. And we'll probably finish this week out with music. Last week, I was trying to get you guys to look at some classical artists, Beethoven and Mozart. This week, I got to jump way ahead to the early 20th century and what they call American roots music, which is folk music, Western country music, blues is in there too. I like to add it all in there. So there's a documentary. I'll post it on Canvas. You'll see it, watch it. Look at some folk artists, some blues artists, and realize that folk music is our story. It's storytellers who are telling our stories, usually around a campfire with an acoustic guitar, and the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the one leader of the American roots music, Woody Guthrie, is covered in that documentary. He was a singer, songwriter, traveler, raconteur, and he traveled the country during the Depression era of this country, and he wrote a ton of songs. Some of them you may have heard of. This Land Is Your Land. Maybe you've heard of it. And he was a union person. He believed in a strong union. And in this country in the 30s, that was a dangerous thing to believe in because it was associated with communism. Socialism still sort of is to people who don't know what they should know. And so he was considered kind of an enemy of the people, but he was also for the people. And he used to play in, during the Great Dust Bowl era, he would play in these encampments of homeless people who were trying to find another way of living, a better life. Usually they came out to California to pick fruit. And one of the great books of all time, The Grapes of Wrath, was written about that era. And Woody Guthrie was right in there, and his music was an important aspect to get people through their misery. It helps. Music is a balm. And I didn't say bomb, BALM, balm, like lip balm. It's going to heal things, hopefully. And so the stories they're telling are our stories. They're our collective stories. And they're told in a very flat out, plain and simple way. No fuss, no muss. Later on, music got co-opted and electrified and things changed, but not yet. And so when in the South, American roots music was coming around because there's no jobs down there. People had to leave the South and go north to the big cities and work for Ford Motor Company in places like Detroit because there was no jobs in the South. Farming wasn't what it used to be. And since no slaves anymore to pick the cotton for free, even growing cotton was an expensive endeavor. And so music got people through the day, got them through the night. Um, I'm going to combine the folk music and blues in this little talk here because the blues was starting to come around this in this era, and I'm going to show you. There's a documentary, guys. I'll post it. I want you to watch on the blues. I think James Franco, the actor, narrates. I believe that's who it is. Anyway, it's a good one. Informative. Watch it. Learn from it. The blues is a deep-seated music. Usually came out of the black culture in our country. In the days of slavery, the slaves would sing in the fields to make life a little bit better. And if you think the blues is a sad music, it is. And unhappy music, not really. It makes people feel better when they perform it and when they sing it. So that's the maybe it's ironic take on the blues. It's supposed to uplift you. It'll make you feel better if you sing it, if you play it, if you listen to it. And any good music, that's pretty good if you could do that, accomplish that. And so, and then the blues musicians from the Mississippi Delta and stuff were starting to, they would go infiltrate because they had to have jobs. They would go north to Chicago, Detroit, and other places where they could get jobs in a factory, a car factory somewhere, making products, steel mills. They call it the Rust Belt now because all those mills are mostly shut down in the Midwest, from Cleveland to Detroit to Pittsburgh, because all those things are closed usually, and the buildings are gone to rust. So, and because they're producing metal, steel, they call it the Rust Belt. But also, it's a very religious belt. The Bible Belt is through there. Lots of churches, lots of bars. There was lots of drinking and then going to church on Sunday. And there was nightclubs. You could play in a nightclub. And there are roadhouses and honky-tonks and bars. And some of them could be pretty rough. And some of them could be black people only, white people only. But sometimes if you snuck into one or the other, you might hear and learn something that will change your life forever. And then when the blues came further north, it got more accepted by the white audiences and more integrated. Still was pretty segregated in the South. And along this time, some great, incredible blues musicians you'll see in the documentary: Howlin' Wolf, Muddy Waters, Son House, and so many more. Robert Johnson. The myth of the blues. It's huge. It's a huge story. The myth of Robert Johnson. You'll see it in the documentary. Robert Johnson was just a so-so guitar player, so-so singer, wasn't getting anywhere, and so he disappeared. He was gone. Everybody thought he moved away or died. They weren't sure. He shows up about a year after he disappeared, and he was playing guitar like a house on fire. People go, what happened? How can he be this accomplished now, where before he was not accomplished? Well, the myth is that he sold his soul to the devil, folks, at the crossroads. If you know the history of the crossroads, the myth of the crossroads, it's out there somewhere. Tennessee, Kentucky. The crossroads are meeting. Supposedly Robert Johnson met the devil there, and the devil said, I will make you a great musician, but you have to give me your soul when you die. And Robert Johnson signed up for it on a handshake. So he made a deal with the devil. And he came back and he played incredible music like nobody had ever heard before. playing guitar like nobody had ever heard before. And they think it's impossible that he could go learn that on his own. From what he was as an amateur musician to that was a huge leap. So how did he get that knowledge? Maybe he did sell his soul to Crossroads. There's only one or two published photographs of Robert Johnson, and he's a haunted man, and he was killed by a jealous lover. He was a ladies' man, and he was essentially poisoned, they think, by one of his exes. It's a mystery. Folks, this is Black America. They don't keep records in the 20s and 30s because it's a different world than white America. So watch the documentary. I'll post it today, and learn about the blues. Later on, they got electric guitars, and people like Muddy Waters electrified the blues, and it became a whole different deal. And then through those recordings, and they're old, folks. They're old and primitive. A lot of them done by this producer named John Hammond, who went out into the field. They called them field recordings, and he would take a tape recorder out into the field in the 30s and the 40s in these backward places to Kentucky, Tennessee, Arkansas, and record authentic blues musicians that nobody had ever heard of. These guys weren't famous, folks. They were not making a big living in the bars. They were mostly playing for their own people in their local towns, parties at their house on the porch, and he recorded them. And then he got the word out because he produced these recordings into records, and the word got out on these amazing wealth of music that was coming out of the South that nobody had ever heard of before. Later on, that music filtered over to England, and maybe you've heard of bands like the Yardbirds, the Animals, Them, the Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin. Maybe you've just heard a few of those things. They heard some of these recordings, and they modified that raw blues. They played it with their loud electric guitars, and they electrified it and changed it. They put an Anglo thing on it, and in the 1960s, with the Yardbirds with Eric Clapton on guitar and John Mayall's bands, Rolling Stones, the Animals, Them, there was a thing called the British Blues, and there was a huge explosion of the British Blues. Fleetwood Mac, the early Fleetwood Mac, was a British blues band that had heard these recordings, and then they wrote songs in the tradition, but they put their spin on it, their Anglophile spin on the black blues. And then they recorded those songs. A lot of them became huge hits. And then American kids are buying these records in the 60s thinking it was all original music, and essentially that had taken our own music, tweaked it a bit, and gave it back to us. And we loved it. And we didn't even know where it was coming from, and it was coming from our own backyards. Because in this country, we were pretty divided. The radio played white people, and a very few black artists were playing the regular radio, and that was how people got listened to. In the South, there was black radio stations, and the rest of the world, there was white radio stations. A lot of the black artists who nobody had ever heard of, like Little Richard and Chuck Berry, their songs were made famous by white musicians. Kind of bland, milquetoast, white bread musicians like Pat Boone had a lot of hits with Little Richard songs. He made it palatable to the white audience because Little Richard's a little too wild for for the white audience. That Pat Boone made it acceptable, and then people thought, "Where's this music coming from?" And Pat Boone goes, "It came. I'm doing the song. I'm singing it, but it's coming from the South, Little Richard, Chuck Berry, and others." And so they were educated. Even Elvis Presley started singing black music, black gospel, church music, and his first couple songs were written. "Hound Dog" is a Big Mama Thornton song, was a huge hit for Elvis, and his version's a lot different than hers, but she's the one that did it first. But he heard it where he lived in Memphis, but nobody outside that heard it. He took it, put his Elvis tweak on it, and became a huge hit. He stole or adapted a lot of black music into his own music, and it became huge and famous. But a lot of people don't realize at the time, they do now, that where he was getting it from. And it was Elvis was a churchgoer, and he loved gospel music. He loved it, sang it till the day he died. At his house, he made many gospel albums of spirituals, and that was usually originated in the black churches in the South. And so it's a rich vein of musical material that Elvis tapped into, and others also at the time. So the history of the Black American blues is huge and rich and wide and deep as it goes. To this day, people are still playing the blues, whether it's Stevie Ray Vaughan, Jimi Hendrix, newer guys, John Mayer, and so many others, Guy Clark. They're all riding on the shoulders of the blues forefathers from the 30s and 40s, and maybe even the 20s. So blues is a rich, rich history. American folk music, same deal. We got so much of our music from Appalachia area, storytellers. A lot of people couldn't read or write, but they could tell stories, and they told stories sometimes accompanied with a guitar. Simple 3 or 4 chords, that's all they needed. Add a tune, beat up guitar. We're not talking high-end equipment here, folks. And they would entertain themselves, they'd entertain their neighbors, and they'd have hootenannies and hay rides, they called them. And it was all about getting the music out there. It got really big in the South, and it started spreading out into the country. In Nashville, they had the Grand Ole Opry, which didn't have very much black music, but it had a lot of this early Appalachian bluegrass music. The Carter family, which later ended up with Johnny Cash got in there, and Merle Haggard, and all the country guys in the 50s. Hank Williams, they were singing their own version of the blues. Sad songs about hard life. They weren't talking about living in mansions or driving nice cars. They were dreaming of it. They were singing. But what they were singing was about the life they were leading. How to make a living, how to have a house, how to have a family, how not to cheat on your wife. So, my phone's ringing. I don't even know where my phone is. I hear it. I won't answer it, folks. Anyway, so look at these 2 documentaries. I'll post them. The next time I see you guys, which will be Thursday, I'll sign a paper. I'm going to try to get through to rock and roll, jazz, and rock on Thursday. It's hard to get all this stuff in. I might have to go a little longer on that because I could do a whole section on jazz easily. Like I could do a whole section on all these forms of music. So look at the documentary. I'm going to post it, Origins of Music. You've already seen, hopefully, part 1 and part 2. It's on Canvas. And then watch this documentary on the blues and that'll be good for right now. Be prepared. I'll sign a paper probably on Thursday. We'll be doing next week. That'll be, I think, the fourth essay, if I'm not mistaken. So one by one, we're knocking them down. Hope everything is going okay out there. Hope you're understanding what I'm trying to want from these essays. I've explained it, I think, in announcements and pages. Look in there. I've said this is what I expect. When I ask you guys to write these papers, I'm not asking for a review or tell me what you saw or read. I want you to analyze what you saw and read. So take notes on this stuff. And you don't have to hit the whole spectrum. I haven't mentioned this before, but say you're going to write about Mozart. You could take one element of Mozart. You don't have to do his whole life if you don't want to. You could take a small element of his life, a piece of music, and analyze the living daylights out of it. I would prefer that instead of just when he was born, when he died. That's not really telling me much about who Mozart is. Music. That's the best way to get to know them. Listen to their music. So, what is today? It's the 29th. We're almost done with February. We're almost done with September. We're moving forward. We're going forward in our lives. I'm jumping into the 20th century on this music, so you don't have to look at the book right now, because I'm jumping centuries. I hope you're getting something out of all this, and it's not just something you're dreading every day. I hope you're enjoying the videos and learning something. I know you are, because I see it in your essays. It's up to you. I always tell people what you get out of a class is how much you put into it. If you want to go in all the way, you'll get a lot out of it. If you want to just skim the surface, that's what you get out of it. Anyway, I'm still working on essays. I don't know which ones you guys are on. I'm not sure if I've caught up with you or not. I've got 4 classes, and I get a little mixed up on what essays done. Have I done all your essays? I'm not sure. I think I did. We did the Dutch painters. Oh no, the 3rd essays is now due, so I haven't done that one yet. So I'm on it. The continuation of the grades continues. It's almost completely dark outside at 7 o'clock. I don't like it when it gets dark early rather. But it got dark early today because of the heavy smoke. Anyway, be careful out there. Stay safe. Stay out of the fires. Don't exercise outside. It's going to hurt your lungs. It will eventually. And try to stay safe in this pandemic. It's a strange world we're living in, but we're getting it through it. And it's going to be better because we're going to come out of it stronger. Because what other choice do we have? Anyway, on that happy note, go listen to some blues. Go listen to some Woody Guthrie, and let their music and their words take you on a journey of our human condition, because that's what they're singing about. See you later.